Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and we're going to talk about dangerous stories. All right, so let's talk about this. All right, so I was very blessed recently. I had a nice extra day. I had a day off, right? So it's a Monday, and I got this wonderful day off, and so I wake up, at like 9 a.m. Just like sleep in, get up, and my wife's like, "You want to go to breakfast?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's go." Right, so we go to this really nice high-end 50s nostalgia restaurant that's around us. It's a little more expensive. We don't usually go there, so we go there together and we have this wonderful breakfast, and then we come home and we have a little bit of a window of time. I was like, "You want to watch something together?" And she's like, "Yeah." So we're like, we only have a few things we watch together. We both have lots of stuff. Actually, I like to watch. It's not hard for me to find stuff to watch. But there's like this small Venn diagram of things that I can watch with my wife. So a lot of times I'll start watching something and I'll be like, "Oh, I should stop watching this and I will watch this with my wife." So I said to my wife, I was like, "We can watch SNL. We both really enjoy SNL together." And then I was like, "Hey, there's this brand new rom-com on Netflix. It just dropped. I don't really like rom-coms, but I was going to watch this thing because Jimmy Yang is in it." So I am a huge fan of Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley had 6 seasons. I watched it from cover to cover, and my oldest daughter watched it with me. So it's like a little bit of a shared language. We tell in jokes from the show. And Jimmy Yang is the best thing in Silicon Valley. He makes the show. He's really, really fantastic. And he's been kind of a B-level actor for a while, but he's so talented that like anything he's in, I will watch because I really want to support him, right? So I was like, I'm gonna watch this rom-com because Jimmy Yang's in it, and he's funny, and I think this rom-com will be good. You want to watch this together? So we turned this thing on. It's called Love Hard 2021, right? It's a Love Hard. It's a 2021 Netflix rom-com, but it hit the top 10. This thing blew up quick. It's done very well, and I'm really excited because Jimmy Yang's in it. He is fantastic. He is perfectly. This is the best role he's ever been in. Outside of actually, honestly, I think this thing is actually even better than Silicon Valley, and the reason why is it's really spectacular, and the reason why is I think this is very good hard competition for like Love Actually, right? I've seen quite a few rom-coms because I got a wife and we'll watch them together every now and then, and this is top shelf rom-com. This thing is perfectly written, very funny, perfectly cast with Jimmy Yang, and Nina Dobrev is the female lead in the rom-com, and Jimmy Yang is the male lead, and it is just spectacular. By the way, spoilers for Love Hard in this content. So we start watching this thing, and rom-coms are rom-coms. Sometimes they're okay. This thing is tight as a drum. It's beautifully shot because it was produced by McG, same guy who did Charlie's Angels and a bunch of other stuff, and he's got a great contract with Netflix, and he's crushing it for them. He makes the movies look fantastic. So visually, this movie is stunning. Jimmy Yang is perfectly cast in it. It's funny. It's really heartfelt. It's amazing, but it is a very, very dangerous story. Okay, here's where we get to the D&D part. So what's the problem with Love Hard? Love Hard is a movie that says if you catfish someone, that can turn out wonderful for everyone involved. You're like, what? Wait, is that the message of this movie? And I'll tell you right now, full out, hard stop, period. This movie's message is if you catfish someone, that is going to turn out like gangbusters, wonderful, awesome for everybody involved. That is an incredibly dangerous message today. All right. Now, I'm going to tell. Now, five out of 5 stars. Thumbs up, everybody. It is a rated R movie, okay? It essentially, they don't really do PG-13, right? But this is mature content on. So if you're 18 or over, you should watch Love Hard. And if you are a dungeon master, you have to watch Love Hard. And the reason why is it is spectacular at showing how a compelling story is written, how characters are woven together, and how you raise the stakes. This is the biggest thing in modern storytelling is if you don't understand this, you are not going to keep your players. You have to raise the stakes constantly. It is a new, and the reason why you have to do it is every writer out there is doing it, right? So if you just tell a regular, boring, bland story, ain't nobody going to be excited because they've seen so many stories where the stakes are raised constantly. And this movie is perfect at raising the stakes, especially outside of combat. We don't have any problems as dungeon masters raising the stakes in combat, right? And there's 3 pillars of Dungeons & Dragons: combat, exploration, and interaction, right? Well, this thing is perfect at raising the stakes in exploration and in interaction, okay? And that's something that every dungeon master needs. So this is definitely every dungeon master content. All right, now here's the kicker, right? I 100% support the movie Love Hard. I think this movie is wonderfully written, wonderfully cast, and is a 5 out of 5 star film. I absolutely love it, and I would recommend it to any adult, right? Now, how can I say that if it has this incredibly dangerous message, right? Well, here's the kicker. We as dungeon masters can realize we can tell dangerous stories if the following is true, okay? 1, if we are very, very confident of our dungeon master skills, okay? So one of the things is, if you are a new dungeon master, and if you are a dungeon master who dungeon masters without confidence, I'm convinced that you need charisma, confidence, and intelligence to be a great dungeon master. You need all 3, right? But you might come into dungeon mastering without one of those, right? You might be building your confidence, or you might be building your charisma, right? It's hard to build your intelligence. That's a tough one. It's one of the reasons why I want a shorter tabletop, why I want a shorter page count on the core books, right? So that we can attract less intelligent dungeon masters. I know not everybody's down with that, but I'm really important. I don't think that dungeon mastering should be, at the macro level, the purview of incredibly well-educated people, right? I don't, and I think that's where we are at the macro right now. I think at the macro level right now, I am very confident that at the 51% level, dungeon masters have at least 1 degree, right? And I don't think that should be the case. I would really like to get more blue-collar dungeon masters, right? Less educated dungeon masters. So basically, you need to be very, very confident in your dungeon mastering skills to tell a dangerous story like this. And in addition to that, there has to be a reason to tell the story, okay? So what is the reason why Love Hard would create this dangerous story? Why on earth would, in modern life, would you create a story that says catfishing can work out great, right? That is a terrible, terrible message, right? Unless you accept nuance. I talk a lot on the internet, and I will tell you right now, the internet despises nuance. But the reality is, I was just listening to Trevor Noah, and he was talking about comedy. This lady was asking him hard questions about jokes he had told like 10 years ago, and she's like, "Oh, are you going to give me your mea culpa for the jokes you told 10 years ago?" And he goes, "No, absolutely not." He said, "Those jokes are told in context, right? In order to understand those jokes, you just simply need to understand the context. You just need to understand the time. You need to understand the people we're talking to. You need to understand the people I'm talking to in the audience. You need to understand the people I'm talking about in the jokes. If you don't get context, you can't really understand comedy, right?" And I was so proud of Trevor Noah for pushing back and saying, "You ain't going to get me to apologize for jokes I told 10 years ago." And he's like, shove off. Go kick rocks, right? And he just handled it perfectly, right? So first of all, you need to be incredibly confident. And then you also have to have a reason to tell a dangerous story. So what was Love Hard's reason to tell the story? In my opinion, their reason to tell this story was it was Jimmy Yang was telling the story of a young Asian short man. And Love Hard says that if you are a young, short Asian man, you are going to have a very challenging time with online dating. And that online dating is ubiquitous, and it's a big part of a lot of people's lives. And the movie was saying that there is a distinct number of young Asian men who are going onto online dating apps and just getting massively ignored, and that it feels terrible for them, and that when they go through this, it makes them doubt their self-worth. It makes them doubt their value, and it makes them doubt themselves, right? And so in this movie, Jimmy Yang's character catfishes this very nice Nina Dobrev character, this this Los Angeles writer, right? And then the movie shows us that you should love Jimmy Yang's character, who catfished someone, right? And boy, I'll tell you right now, I can hear you already, right? Okay, so I'm going to give you your comment before you give it below. I haven't watched this movie, Scott. That sounds like a terrible movie. And honestly, on paper, it does sound like a terrible movie. It's a terrible movie until you watch it. And then it's spectacular. And with full context and with full knowledge of the product in question, right? The story, with full knowledge of the dangerous story that's being told, you're like, this is a story that was worth telling. And the danger, the risk accepted to tell this story is okay, because there is a marginalized group involved who, in order to tell their story, we need to take some risks, right? And I'm 100% down for that, right? So, as a dungeon master, if you are going to tell a dangerous story, and here's my perspective, you should tell dangerous stories as a dungeon master if all the following are true. You are incredibly confident in your skills as a dungeon master, and you are confident because you have hard, practical information that you are a good dungeon master. Now, let me make something 100% clear. You are not a good dungeon master if your players tell you you are a good dungeon master. That is not reliable information. People, if you ask someone how you're doing a thing, people just out of the kindness of their heart will tell you you're good at it even when you're bad. And I think players are exactly the same, right? So you need actual practical information to know you are a good dungeon master. Where would you get that? Well, one of the ones that I do is my players show up. They show up continuously, right? And new players keep getting added to the game, not by me. My players are inviting others to our game. And in addition to that, this is the biggest one, my players reschedule their work not to miss the game. That's incredible. It happens quite frequently, and I am astounded by it every time it happens. Truly incredible, right? Like, because I don't expect much from my players from the perspective of that they would go that much out of the way, and I'm just amazed when they do it, and I'm so thankful, and I'm very fortunate, right? All right, so one, you have to have practical information that you are a very good dungeon master. In addition to that, you have to fully understand the marginalized groups that you are telling stories about, right? Actually, you don't have to fully understand them. You have to have a genuine interest in understanding them, and you have to have done some homework, and then you have to have a good, I think you need to have, so you're very confident that and have practical information that you're a good dungeon master. You have a genuine interest in the marginalized group that you're going to tell a story about, and you have a genuine goodwill toward that marginalized group, right? You have taken the time to understand what language can and cannot be used in telling that dangerous story, right? And you did that by doing cultural research and by talking to people in that marginalized group and asking them distinct questions about the story you want to tell, right? People who are not in your game, people who are actually members of the marginalized group that you're telling a story about. I think if all those things are there, and you have a player base who has maturity when it comes to cultural sensitivity and are generally players who extend goodwill actively to every other player at the table, you are in a position to tell a dangerous story in your Dungeons & Dragons game. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you should. And the reason why is I believe that Dungeons & Dragons is that it is completely okay to pursue Peak Path Dungeons & Dragons, which is the best possible game you can play of Dungeons & Dragons possible, right? I actually have a very specific view on Peak Path. If you're not familiar with that, you'll find an article in the doobly-doo below if you have any additional questions on it. But I really am just powerfully impressed with the amazing story that was told in Love Hard. And Love Hard is a lesson to every Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition Dungeon Master out there on how to tell dangerous stories, why you should take the time to tell dangerous stories, and how to prepare to tell very dangerous stories, right? And in addition to that, believe that the dangerous stories you tell can have a very distinct beneficial effect on the world. I think that Love Hard is a wonderful film that will bless everyone who sees it and will open their eyes to cultural realities that they have not thought of before, right? And I think when you run Dungeons and Dragons, right, you can be the kind of schmuck who's like, all I care about is that me and my players cut some goblins in half, and that's it. But if you care about impacting your table and impacting people beyond your table with your Dungeons and Dragons game, Love Hard is exactly the kind of story that you should be telling. All right, that goes and goes the extra mile when it comes to taking risks on the exploration side and on the interaction side, and allows dangerous elements to be introduced on the exploration and the interaction side. We're very comfortable with dangerous content on the combat side. The future of Dungeons and Dragons is mastering dangerous elements being managed in stories on the exploration side and on the interaction side. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.